The monster slowly pushed open the door, then stretched its dry-withered arm toward the boy. At that moment, the boy, sound asleep, was completely unaware of the impending danger. The story unfolds in a post-apocalyptic world. Every nightfall, they must secure all doors and windows, even double-checking to ensure there are no gaps. Only when the house is completely sealed do they sit down at the dinner table. The reason they do this is that after dark, the outside world no longer belongs to humans. But just as they had begun to relax, a sudden crashing sound came from outside the door. It seemed that some unknown creature was trying to break in. The family rushed downstairs quickly, using all their strength to block the steel door. Fortunately, after a short while, the noise outside stopped. They thought they had averted the crisis, but unexpectedly, while they slept, the monster pried open a wooden plank with its fingers and extended its dry arm inside just as the monster was about to enter. The boy woke up just in time and pressed a button. A huge wooden cage fell from the ceiling. It turned out they had anticipated the monster's intrusion and had set a trap to lure it in. The next day, deep claw marks were left on the cage, indicating that it could no longer be used. So the family decided to go outside to find repair materials. Soon the three of them were driving a small car, searching for supplies. Cage stayed behind to repair the house, while sending the two sons out to search for materials. However, when they arrived in the forest, the older son suggested splitting up, though it was dangerous. This greatly increased their chances of finding supplies. As long as they met before dark, they would be safe. Kevin, the older son, went to a nearby village, but unexpectedly, he was there to meet Mary. The two embraced intimately, completely disregarding the safety of the younger brother. As the evening light began to fade, Kevin reluctantly left. However, during his hurried return, he accidentally fell into a deep pit. Meanwhile, the younger brother was desperately searching, and as nightfall approached, Kevin still hadn't reached the meeting point. The younger brother assumed Kevin had gone home early, so he drove back to the house when he met Cage. He realized that Kevin had gone missing. Helpless, Cage grabbed a torch and went out to search. At the same time, Kevin finally woke up in the pit, but when he looked up, he saw he was more than 10 meters off the ground. Carefully, he lit a lighter, hoping to find an exit. Just then, a monster appeared in front of him. In a critical moment, Cage arrived just in time, jumped into the pit without hesitation, and killed the monster, saving Kevin, but it was too dangerous outside, so the two of them had to stay in the pit for the night. While resting, the ground suddenly began to sink. Cage quickly realized that monsters were about to spawn underground. Fortunately, he had brought a bundle of explosives. He lit them, blowing the monsters into a pile of meat. The next morning, the younger son drove out to search for them after traveling 10 kilometers. He suddenly found Cage, unconscious on the ground, to save his unconscious father. Kevin brought him to Mary's village, but unexpectedly, Mary refused to treat Cage. This threw Kevin into despair, as everyone was struggling to survive in the apocalypse. With no choice, Kevin pretended to stay a few days in the village, but secretly planned to steal the precious medicine. However, he was caught by Mary along the way. Fortunately, Mary understood Kevin's situation and took out the medicine for him. What neither of them knew was that William had overheard their conversation. Just as Kevin was about to leave, William aimed a gun at him and locked him in a basement. Just as William was about to kill Kevin, the monster from below dragged him into the abyss. Soon, large numbers of monsters erupted from the ground. Tearing into the crowd, Kevin seized the chance to escape his restraints and followed Mary out of the basement. However, when they reached the raging fire, Kevin wanted to go back inside to rescue people, but Mary stopped him. As the fire had already gotten out of control, they had to find a safe place. Meanwhile, the younger brother was sealing the doors and windows, but accidentally stepped into a large pit. Realizing that monsters were about to emerge, he quickly stuffed wood into the pit to block them. Just then, the front door suddenly opened. Fortunately, it was Kevin and Mary coming in. Meanwhile, Cage had also woken up and calmly stated that they would fight until the end. After receiving his father's approval, the family quickly began setting traps in the room, placing explosives along the monster's likely path, and filling the hole with gasoline. When everything was ready, the monsters arrived as expected, charging into the house. A fierce battle broke out. Seeing that the two sons were falling behind, Cage stepped forward. Despite his severe injuries, remembering his son's childhoods, he resolutely locked the door behind him. As dozens of monsters surged forward, the bombs were triggered, and the room exploded in fire and debris. The area quickly grew quiet, and Cage sacrificed his life to ensure the safety of his sons.